up in Minnesota, and she said there's actually no snow on the ground. So how awesome is that? Hey,
That's
Lisa.
awesome.
So, like we always do, we're going to go through our 4 questions. We've got a couple of more business, professional related questions, then kind of a fun question, and then a cause related question. So we'll just go through those 4, getting started here in just a second. And thanks for joining us, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So first question is, and I'm excited to hear the answer on this one. Let me pull up my questions here. I'll be the awkward one turning to the left real quick. So last year, Mall of America, and I remember actually seeing this when I was on Twitter one week and seeing the hashtag BSPP, but you guys did the big secret parking party, right, at Mall of America where you work for your Twitter followers. Explain that campaign and kind of like how you came up with the idea and what it was all about and how it ended up working out for you.
Sure, absolutely. The Big Secret Parking Party was an idea that we came up with literally, we obviously have a pretty, it's a pretty significant marketing campaign every holiday season at Mall of America. The holidays are a big time for us, but, we really wanted to do some really cool stuff with social and integrate and also solve some of the challenges that we have, like parking is a huge issue during the holiday season, as you can imagine. In addition to driving traffic and sales and really hitting kind of more of a broad base of our audience, we're really interested in that and reaching as large of a demographic as possible. And so in formulating our kind of holiday marketing plan, we were like, well, in 2009, we had created the hashtag MOA parking and done real-time traffic and parking updates via Twitter that way. And it was like very, very successful, and CNN covered it. And we figured there was something there. So we continued that throughout the year. And essentially what we did was we said, well, let's clear 96 parking spaces directly in front of the mall the Saturday before Christmas, which is one of the busiest days next to Black Friday of the year. We walked into our VP of operations and he gave us the go ahead, which was shocking. So we kind of rolled with it and we crafted this whole campaign. And do you want me to get into like specifics or?
Yeah, just give me a couple of examples of what people said, what they thought about it. How did it work? Like if I was going to get one of these parking spots, how did that happen?
Yep, absolutely. So the really great thing about it is the overhead was minimal. All we paid for was a really cool, very, very large sign that we lifted on scissor lifts and put in the parking lot the actual day. But beyond that, we used obviously traditional media to drive the messaging, as well as Pitch Engine, which is a free social media press release tool. You can subscribe if you want your press release to live, but it's pretty awesome, robust tool. We used Eventbrite, which is an online event and ticketing platform that you can either charge. Our tickets were free, obviously, but it allowed us to manage batches of tickets. So we released 3 different batches on Twitter, which was awesome. We were able to create hype and generate more awareness that way. And then we did surprise gift bags on the actual day of the event. And the way that it was crafted was the actual day, there were 4 hours that you could enter, and there were no parameters set on when you had to leave or anything like that. So you could enter between 8 and 11 a.m. So we stood outside in the blistering cold for like 4 hours. It was awesome. But people came in. We were able to meet our followers, which was unbelievable. And we had an amazing... What's that?
So that is cool. You guys. I didn't realize you were actually in the parking lot, like handing out gift bags.
Yeah, absolutely. So we handed out gift bags, and we really kind of brought this whole experience to them. And essentially what we did after the fact was we sent out a SurveyMonkey, which is another free tool. And we said, we asked a number of questions, but we said, would you have come to Mall of America today had this event not have happened? And how much money did you spend? Under 100, 100 or more, 200 or more, 300 or more? And we were able to really kind of turn this whole event, we were able to prove the return on investment for obviously our bosses, as well as the great thing about them is they don't really care that much. They really are in the spirit of testing kind of social media and what that does for various demographics, which is very cool. But they were also very happy to see that we generated some significant revenue from the event. But the great thing were the quotes. I mean, people were like, we wouldn't have come here today had this not have happened. This was awesome. The gift bags were amazing. And they were like, we love you guys. And we love that you guys do stuff like this for us. And that was, when you do this for a living, there's really a benevolence that goes along with it for me, but it is really cool to know that you're making a difference for people when you market to them, or like market in this kind of new and human way. I mean, that's what we're doing and putting a lot of our kind of tender love and care into these marketing programs. So it was really awesome. It was a really awesome event. We got $2 million in media off of the event as well. So in addition to driving traffic and sales at the mall and really creating awareness, we were able to then that seeped into traditional media and really allowed our brand to continue to grow and, shine in a new way in terms of what we're doing and innovating in the social space in our marketing communications efforts, which was awesome. So,
I was just going to say, it's one of the things that's cool to hear you describe that. It definitely sounds like an integrated campaign.
absolutely.
Which we don't hear enough about, right? Not
Yeah.
different pieces of the discipline working together. And then the other thing is, I've been talking to a lot of people lately about how good old surveys work pretty dang well sometimes. We think we've got to have all these fancy tools to measure, and they help too. But sometimes a good old survey can get you a lot of what you want.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it blows your mind too. Like, I presented this, and I'm presenting it at Blog World, and I'm stoked about that. But people are like, these are all free tools for the most part. And that's the thing is we have a lot of resources that are pretty low cost. So utilize them.
Absolutely, no, that's such a cool campaign. It really is. And yeah, if anybody's going to Blog World, make sure to check that out. That's going to be an awesome case study. Okay, so in a recent blog post, I was looking at your blog, which, by the way, I love the name of your blog, Communications Passionista. That always makes me crack up. I think it's awesome. But you had a post about finding a job or an internship, but what actually struck me about your post was the way you worded that, like, it's not as much about finding a job, it's more about finding something that turns you on professionally. And I think that's a really interesting way to say that and compelling. And then how did you go about doing that in your career, though? I mean, give me an example of what that meant to you as far as, like, figuring out what you were going to do.
I had a really untraditional career path. Like, I didn't go to college the right way, and I didn't, get a job or an internship in the right way. And there were times where I kind of doubted that. But, I went to a private Catholic high school. I went to the University of Minnesota, which was a really big school. It's a great school, but I wasn't in the right program. And so I did that for 2 years. I was a film major. I was like, do I want to make movies? Not really. Do I love film and storytelling? Yes. So I ended up leaving that program, took a year off, went back to school, found my love in communications. But I think that example in its own right is very much the type of person that I am. Like, I'm not going to settle for something if it doesn't feel right to me. And it is very important for me to feel very confident in what I'm doing and the choices that I make. And so, and that's the way I've been since I was a little kid. So, from that, I kind of really I'm a seeker of kind of my truth. And I know that might sound a little bit strange, but I feel like, what else do we have? You know what I mean? So, from that experience, I then kind of continued to seek what I loved, and I took an interpersonal communications course, and it rocked my socks. So I continued to pursue that, and I've done that ever since. And I won't stop. If I don't like a situation I'm in, I find my way out of it. And that doesn't mean that I leave it. You know what I mean? Like, I've never left a job before I had a new one and things like that, but I just seek what I'm passionate about. And I think, and I've written other posts about it, but I think that you do that by asking a lot of questions and truly figuring out what makes you tick. Because again, what else do you have? And if you have to spend 40 hours plus, and I'm sure you can attest to, you probably spend more than 40
For the plus
hours.
part? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that number is good. But, if you're spending all that time there, you better darn well like what you're doing. So, I mean, I know that that's kind of like a larger answer, but, if something doesn't feel right to me, I figure out what is right, and I trust that instinct and that voice. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I think sometimes people feel like they get trapped in a situation, right, and there's no alternative. And I think that it's not that you just get up one day and walk out, right, but you find a way to make the situation work for you. I think that's important for people to remember. I mean, there's always a different alternative, right?
Totally.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And those bad situations are such teachable moments, I mean, that's the other really great thing is
that's very true.
I've learned a lot from stuff I don't like, and listen to that, instead of bailing, which is the easy thing to do. You sit in that situation and figure your way out of it, and it will teach you and arm you so well for the next endeavor. That's been nothing but true for me. So
cool. No, that's great advice. So either when I've seen you posting these pictures on Facebook of people you meet at your job, or just seen you, at a conference or heard your stories, you're really very good at building relationships, and you meet a lot of cool people, from social media celebrities to people that are just at the mall that people might recognize as as I hesitate to say Hollywood celebrities, but as more of the entertainment type celebrities. So I figured this would be a good question for you. Tell me about a couple of really interesting people you've met recently that might fall into those categories, or maybe they're not a celebrity at all. Maybe they're just somebody people should follow and pay attention to.
Yeah. That's a hard question for me. I'm just a really big people person, and I think it's written somewhere in some bio that I have, but my mom says that I was so much more interested in people than toys when I was little, and that becomes more true the older that I get.
Yeah.
Meeting you at South by Southwest, I mean, not meeting you, but we've known each other online for literally years, and then we got to spend some ample time together at South by Southwest, and those are the things that are really valuable to me is connecting with these like minds. And, you know, we've had this relationship and we've commented on the same blog post or commented on each other's blog posts or find ourselves in the same conversation. And then we get to have that conversation in real life and share best practices and talk about what we're working on and continue to build those relationships. And that's really valuable to me. And, you know, meeting celebrities is cool. And, you know, in this job, I've met some, but I have also, like, I used to work in fine dining and I have a lot of friends out in Hollywood. And so, like, between those experiences in my early 20s and stuff, like, I've met a lot of those people or waited on them or whatever. Honestly, from a celebrity standpoint, and it's funny now how we have, like, there's this categorical thing with
there totally is, yeah.
It's awesome. But, you know, Marissa Tomei was one of the sweetest celebrities I ever met. That wasn't here, actually. That was at a restaurant. And Susan Lucci, who I just interviewed this last weekend, was a dove. I mean, she was like the nicest person ever. But I don't really know her work that well. You know what I mean? And that's the other really fun thing is, like, I don't really know a lot of these people sometimes that I have to interview. So it's interesting. But in terms of social media celebrity, I'm a big Chris Brogan fan. Chris is great, and I really have a lot of respect for his work and what he's been able to do in terms of bringing a concept to life for a broad audience of people. So, like, the way that he writes and the way that he communicates, granted, and his skeptics talk about or criticize him for, you know, talking this big game or talking about something that's so simple. Well, the reality is common sense isn't common sense for most people, and Chris is...
So true.
It is very true. And Chris has, in a very, very good way, been able to bring a common sense message to a mass of people. And I have a lot of respect for that. And I think that it shouldn't go unnoticed. I also have had good experiences with him. I've been able to have dinner with him one-on-one and get to know him a little bit. So, you know, I mean, there are things like that where it's like you seek people whom you respect and you understand how they got there, so you can learn from that. And those are the kinds of engagements I'm interested in. But for the most part, they're just people like me and you know? I mean, right. You, Chuck Heeman, some of our Minneapolis colleagues, a lot of great people. But
yeah, that's a really good point. I think it is really cool to all the relationships that you can take from the online experience and take offline. I think a big part of that, what I see people like you and some other folks I met at South by do this really well, is just they're not afraid to go talk to somebody. You know what I mean? Which it sounds like that shouldn't be intimidating, but I think that hinders people a lot online and offline. And I think that people that are not afraid to do that a lot of times really end up reaping the benefits from it.
No, I totally agree. I think, like, I don't know, you probably have brothers and sisters, but I'm an only child, and so, like, I have no other option than kind of being on my own. And I think that being comfortable with being on your own is pretty important because it eliminates that fear factor. And I think, I don't know, for me, it's the only thing I can equate it to because I don't have any other comparison point, but I'm just not afraid. It's like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, which is totally the way you should approach it. Absolutely. So last question I always ask in these things is about a cause or an organization that you're passionate about or you support. And then want to make sure you have a chance to give people a little bit of information about how they can get involved with it or just find out more about it. So what do you got?
That I have. That's a really good question. I am a huge fan of TED. TED is a phenomenal resource. It's a conference that it's one of those things. It's like a dream of mine to go to TED, which is I think like $6,000. But the great thing about TED is that they make all of their content free, and they talk about technology, they talk about innovation, they talk about education, development, all of these different areas of expertise, and they have these speakers that have to submit their big idea, and they have a brief time to share about it. I think it's like 20 minutes, and some of the talks are shorter, but essentially what they do is they bring messages to a global audience for free. So you can go to TED.com. I think it's TED.com. Let me look. But you can go to TED.com and you can watch TED Talks for free. And the great thing about that is, we're in charge of our education, and they bring educational messages of all shapes and sizes to the masses for free, and give us the opportunity to utilize that if we have the internet, which can be accessed for free at a local library if you don't have a computer or whatever. So I'm very much a fan. I'm very much somebody who wants to participate in some sort of capacity, but I very much love their message and the information they make available. So I hope that's good. It's not like, the Humane Society or anything, but I think that what they're doing is very, very cool.
Yeah, I think the education angle of it really is interesting. And what's interesting to me about TED is like it's one of the only things I've never heard anyone say anything negative about. Like some people don't like South by Southwest, people do. Some people don't like Blog World, some people do. No one ever has anything but just positive, complimentary things to say about TED and what they learn from those, from those videos. And you're right about the education piece. I mean, 20-minute video, hour video, turn it on while you're doing something else and, take in as much as you can. So that's a really, really solid point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So I dig it.
Nice. Thanks for the time today, Lisa. Awesome answers. It's always great to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
Ditto. Thank you.